Good Lord, finally. What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And on behalf of Hulu, I would like to apologize for my delayed recap of The Handmaid's Tale Season 6, Episode 8, because they didn't upload the audio description track the same day they uploaded the episode. And I waited for the damn audio description. So I watched this yesterday. So you're getting it the day after. I usually get these recaps up the day after the episode premieres, so like on Wednesday, and this is going up on a Sunday. Quite disappointed in the whole thing. I had no control over it. Hulu be Hulu. Thanks, Hulu. Stay classy. So The Handmaid's Tale, we're getting close to the end, so shit like this matters. For anybody who just sat through, like, I don't know, the last couple episodes of Andor, you know that sort of when a show is barreling towards conclusion, anything can happen, and anything can and will happen. And I kind of wanted more of that, if I'm going to be honest. I felt like there was so much build up to this episode that was almost aggravated by the lack of audio description and me waiting and the fact that I couldn't watch it. And I would see other people, there was like a social reaction to it that called this like the Red Wedding. I was like, ooh, I hope it's like the Red Wedding. It's not. These are recaps, by the way, so spoilers. Yeah, it's really not. It's really not like, it kind of is. But the Red Wedding was significant because we lost people we cared about suddenly out of nowhere. So I guess the Red Wedding also is in reference to the fact that the Handmaid's Tale was where the handmaids wear these cloaks. And there's a big sort of reference to at the beginning about being dipped in the color of blood. You hear June talking about fashion, and Gilead made this choice. And she thinks it's weird that people used to wear and think about clothes and we used to buy. It's a very sort of, I don't know, they're trying to say something in the beginning here, but it's interesting because I know why we're doing it, but they're almost like shaming you for having clothes. Because in a dystopian future, you won't be worried about fashion. You'll be worried about other things. Whatever dystopian future you're living in, obviously Gilead doesn't work out for certain people. So that's what you'll be focused on, is what June is saying. So we see her and Moira, and they're working in the facility to sew these knives, these little blades, into their cloaks because they're going to join the rest of the handmaids and go to this wedding. And they're going to pass these knives out to the other handmaids. And the other thing that they've done is our BFF, who is now living free in New Bethlehem, who was asked to bake the cake, but also put a little something, something in it, which is causing people to feel real tired. And you see certain characters not eating the cake, and nobody's really picking up on it because, like Lawrence is avoiding it. He's like, not into this, not having this cake. But otherwise, everybody else has the cake. There's never an effort. June is still pissed at Nick, so if Nick wants to indulge on cake, he absolutely can. He'll be unaffected by this episode, by the way, for obvious reasons. He might be affected in the next episode, I don't know, but he survives this episode because he doesn't have a handmaid, and that's a huge part of the plan, is using the handmaids. So because he doesn't have one, which again is so weird. It is so weird. We have to talk about that. It is so fucking weird. It is so weird. There are things that happened in this episode that make no sense. It is not my favorite episode. I waited this long for this episode and I was like, God damn it. So, okay, so they hand out the blades. There's this little scene where it gets really tense because one of the girls, a rando, drops a knife, and of course she steps on it basically, so nobody notices it, and the handmaids just don't move, and a guard looks and is like, "What was that?" Because like you can hear it drop and clang on the floor, but nobody knew where it came from, and he's just kind of looking for it, doesn't see anything, and it's just like, oh, well, I don't know what that was. They just give up. Uh, but now they're afraid to keep doing it that way, so they pass out the knives at the reception instead of during the ceremony while sitting in the pew. But eventually everybody gets their knives, and they're all handed cake, and they don't eat the cake. There's a moment where Serena comes over, and Serena gets married in lovely fashion to Wharton. So I guess technically it's a lovely wedding uh, in any regard. Like, that's perfectly fine. Nobody got sacrificed. There wasn't anything like super weird. It was just a very sort of traditional wedding. She wore this like blue thing, and he's just waiting for her. I mean, like, everything is just sort of a very average wedding, It's just how people are seated, how the citizens of Gilead are wearing their drab gray, and the commanders' wives, and the handmaids, right? So it's all that stuff. And Serena comes over and talks to the handmaids for a while, and June is desperately trying to hide her face from Serena, and Serena's giving this speech that that June would love to comment on, because it's all about how she had a handmaid once, and she'd like to think, and she believes that they've come to a place of forgiveness, and that Serena wants to work really hard to make the lives of handmaids better. I don't know how, and obviously Serena's about to find out. Nope. So, in a fashion that doesn't make any sense either. Again, we're going to talk about it. So I was actually kind of surprised how that scene played out, because I thought it was going to play differently considering the leap the writers decided to make. So June navigates. She walks past Nick without being seen, all those kind of things. Lydia shows up, which surprises everybody, because she was supposed to be at this other thing. Like, Lawrence sent her away, and she still shows up, and they try to like feed her cake, and they're like, oh, you're famished. Why don't you sit here and eat some steak and cake? And she thinks she sees June, but she runs up to a handmaid that isn't June, because June was able to sneak away. So she thinks she's losing her mind, but she's been seeing things, and she believes, finally at the end of it all, we see that Lydia noticed that none of the handmaids ate their cake, and they put it all like under their chairs that had like a cloth over them. So they completely hid the cake and wouldn't have been noticed until they cleaned up later on. And June and Moira split. Moira goes back with the other handmaids that are at the Red facility. And June heads off because she has to rescue our friend from Commander Asshole. So, but I'll come back to Serena. I'm just going to finish this part of the story. So yeah, she gets to Commander Bell's house, and he's knocked out. But there's like a phone ringing, and he gets awakened by the phone, and somebody's yelling at him about something. It's probably Lydia, because she's the one who figured. I don't even know who's yelling at him. It doesn't really matter, because June's already in the room, and as soon as he notices her, he thinks he has like some sort of upper hand. He doesn't know that she has a knife, and I can't remember what she said to him, but it was like, nice to meet you, or something like that. And she just immediately drives the knife into his eye, like full Janine, but she drives it deep enough that it goes back into the brain, and he dies from it. He like twitches on the floor for a little while, and then bleeds out. So Commander Bell was the big death for the episode. So no more Creeper. There really wasn't. There's the insinuated that this is the plan that happened to all the other commanders. It's just that Janine wasn't at the thing at the facility, so she would have been able to kill off Belle. So June did it for her. So June figured out a way how to get to the house and how to sneak in. And they showed that, that there were guards that were asleep too, because obviously there were some guards that had some cake at the wedding. So a lot of people were just passed out. And Janine comes down and finds June and is elated. And they get rescued. And back at the facility, Lydia shows up looking for June because she's positive, and she runs into Phoebe, and Aunt Phoebe's like, what's up? The girls are sleeping. They're just sleeping. There's nothing weird going on here at all. And Lydia's just like, open the door. And apparently there's only like one guard there, and he's not really sure what to do. I mean, he plays this role like he's a guard on his first day. I mean, men don't usually listen to women in Handmaid's Tale, so this scene didn't fully work for me. But this dude, I'm guessing, I hope they cast like a really young-looking dude who looked like he had just started the job, like fresh out of whatever academy. He's brand new. And he's like, I have no idea. I'm way in over my head here. So she bursts in. She goes to the facility. She finds out that all the handmaids are still in bed and they're all wearing their cloaks. And she demands to know what happened. And she accuses Phoebe of corrupting the handmaids. And, she's yelling and screaming about June. And then Moira stands up and she's like, don't you remember me? And she gets in this whole thing, and Lydia legit does not remember her. Like, legit does not remember Moira. And it's Moira's opportunity to tell Lydia and to yell at her and to really tell Lydia all the things that happened to her and how she treated women. And by the time she's done, because she denies the whole time, Moira's like, who? No, there's no June. It's me. I did this. Don't you remember me? Am I not, isn't my story enough for you? And oddly, it's defeated by the fact that June walks in and talks to Lydia and tells her, and very calmly talks to her too, and reminds her and talks about like, I think that even that you've seen things that you cannot unsee. You know things that you can't unknow, and even at the heart of it, rape is still rape, and you still know that. And so she says all of the right things to kind of break down Lydia, who kind of has this like loss of faith. And then Janine comes in the room, and she sees that June rescued Janine, and she apologizes to Janine and hugs Janine and is just crying, and she lets everybody go. So Lydia does the right thing in the end, which is nice, because that cake's probably about to kick in. And the final shot of Lydia is just her just kind of standing in this chapel by herself, clearly having a crisis of faith. I'm so curious as to what her spinoff is like. Like, where are we going with this? Because that's what I'm thinking about the whole time, is that the spinoff is Lydia's, as far as I know, is the only returning cast member that's featured. Ann Dowd is the only one. And Ann Dowd is brilliant in this sequence. I'm so disappointed that people frequently, like Emmy voters, tend to not recognize older shows in their later seasons or bring people back that should be recognized. So people like Ann Dowd, who deserves an Emmy nomination, in addition to Elizabeth Moss, who I hope gets one, or I don't know, any number of people. Bradley Whitford's been great this season. Yeah, the work has been consistently across the board excellent. And so we see at the end of it is like, it's just the handmaids walking away, basically, and they're off to do whatever is happening in episode 9. God help us all. So maybe more people will die. Maybe it'll get to Nick. But the reason why I did get to Nick is because he did that Handmaid. Now, here's the interesting thing. So Wharton has been very sort of like, it's my daughter, and you can't fuck around, and no going to Jezebel's, that kind of thing. He's kept a really hardcore thumb, and I think honestly, if Nick knew what Wharton was doing right now, he'd lose his shit if he knew the hypocrisy. So Serena gets home, and Wharton is his usual charming self, and I've been waiting for this dude, for the other shoe to drop. It's like, he can't be this nice. He cannot be the commander of Gilead and be this nice. And waiting for him is the quote-unquote gift, and it's from Bell Sr., Commander Bell's father. It's a fucking handmaid. So, Serena is horrified to see that there's this handmaid waiting for them at home, sitting there in this, like, crouching position, waiting to serve. And she's like, but I'm fertile. I thought when we were talking about having more kids, I thought you meant with me. And he's like, well, we were talking about having a big family. So how did you think we have to do the Lord's work? And this is such a hypocrisy moment, because he doesn't allow Nick to do God's work. So Nick doesn't have a handmaid that he's expected to propagate with, because it's his daughter. So he looks at his daughter a certain way, but then he has his handmaid, like he keeps a tight leash on Nick and makes sure that Nick's only going one direction with anything. But for him, it's okay. And that's what I felt was like, the hypocrisy didn't quite match, because if he truly was thinking about this from a religious perspective, he'd be like, Nick, where's your handmaid? Why is she not pregnant also? You're supposed to be impregnating everything. But I guess they didn't want to tip the hat. They didn't want you to know that this is what they were planning for him. But I don't think it works. I don't think you can have a guy who is this hardcore about sort of like, almost like, it feels like he's really into the sanctity of marriage. And that's where I thought he was going to go. I thought the other shoe dropping was going to be, he got her to go to Boston and now she doesn't get to go back to New Bethlehem. And that would be enough. Which is oddly not the takeaway, because he lets her leave. At first he wasn't going to, and there's a guard that sits in front of the door. And they have a fight over the fact that he has a handmaid. And she takes Noah, and he lets her leave. She's like, what are you going to do to me? You're going to cut off a finger? You're going to beat me? The things have already happened to her, basically. So she stands up to him, and then she takes Noah and she leaves, because, she has this promise of a better day for handmaids. And it's one of Serena's better scenes, because she actually sits down, and she wants to know what the handmaid's actual name is. And it's like Charlotte or something like that. And I was thinking, if this bitch is Hannah, if this is if this is Hannah, I can't remember what Hannah doesn't go by Hannah anymore. Hannah goes by something else, and I've already forgotten what it was. I was like, if this turns out to be, and this is June's daughter, oof, I don't think it is, because she was being raised to be a commander's wife the last time we checked in, not a handmaid. So yeah, it's not what Serena was expecting. It's not what I was expecting, because, again, it feels like a false bill of sale, like, storytelling-wise. Like, Wharton is so, against screwing around. He finally gets to shut down Jezebel's. He doesn't seem to care that women in New Bethlehem have rights and they can read and stuff like that. So he's not quite as into the Gilead lifestyle as some other people are. He wants to make sure that Nick is really only with his daughter. But then he comes home and he's like, yeah, I have a handmaid. This is gonna happen. So, I don't know where we're gonna go forward from that, but he seems upset at the end, and we'll see. Because it doesn't really show. It doesn't have a resolve. Both of those characters are alive at the end. And this handmaid was brand new, so she doesn't have. I don't think she's ready to kill the High Commander. Um, but then again, I think those two both had cake. At some point, even though they talk about how it took them forever and they felt like they were talking, I think they just had cake late. So I wonder where episode 9 is going to pick up and where we're going to go with the story, and how we're going to finish this out. But really, the biggest character death was Belle, and I guess there's a whole bunch of like suggested character deaths in terms of maybe some other commanders, and that's why the other handmaids all were given knives, and then sent home to their various places. So, yeah, maybe like a whole bunch of commanders and their wives are dead now, but it doesn't clarify that specifically. So we'll see in the next episode. Anyway, I'm gonna give not my favorite episode, but it has, oh my god, some performances. Like Yvonne Strahovski was fantastic, Ann Dowd is fantastic, and I'm kind of one of those people who loves acting. I love it. And sometimes, like storytelling wise, when something isn't 100% there storytelling wise, but like the acting is flawless, I'm just like, I got it. I mean, this is like the acting is all over the place. So while I disagree with a lot of the story points, there's some fantastic Emmy moments here for some of these actors, and they're for your consideration moments, you know. And I can't discount that either. So I can't really ever see myself going lower than this, but I'm gonna give The Handmaid's Tale a B for the week. I think there were a couple things I would have done differently, and a couple things that I felt like the series didn't quite earn, but man, the acting is just on point. And I love that people were comparing it to Red Wedding, and it's like, I kind of get what you're saying because of the dresses, but also when you compare it to Red Wedding, Game of Thrones, people are like, oof, oh, we're gonna get some heavy. No, we didn't. The death of Commander Bell is in no way related to the deaths in the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones. I mean, like, we all knew he was going to die. Like, he is the least obvious. There's no way, even if this series ends with the death of June, Moira, and Luke, Belle doesn't get to live. There's no way. So some people are just evil for the sake of us rooting to see them get killed off, and that's what this was. I don't know if Wharton could live. He's not so inherently evil that he has to die by the end of the series. He could also have a crisis of faith and choose Serena. Like, he could actually come back from this. So they could do that. And he could say, I freed the handmaid or whatever. I choose you. And that could be his future. I just don't know I don't know that Serena gets a happy ending. Anyway, we'll talk about it after episode 9, which hopefully we'll get audio description day and date. That would be nice. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.